no, it's a good act. Like, we were part of Baba Yellowlegs' troop or whatever. And they're like,
What'd you
okay.
do for Baba Yellowlegs?
She
He
goes, well,
throws
my
knives."
husband throws knives.
Hey everybody, this is Kat,
And this is Rachel.
and you're listening to the Smut Peddlers podcast, a show for people who love books, especially when there's smut. We discuss our likes, our dislikes, and share all our favorite moments with you.
Today we're talking about Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. So grab your favorite beverage and get ready to burn with us. All right, we are in part 3 of our tandem read. Again, we are reading in the romantic order, meaning that we are reading Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn as the tandem read. So today we're going over Empire of Storms chapters 17 to 20 and Tower of Dawn chapters 13 to 17.
So, recap of what we've covered so far, or what we covered last episode. There was an attack on the Torre. A healer was killed. And then Irene was in the Torre libraries at the time when she stumbled across this healer. She also felt like she was being followed and possibly being targeted by whatever this being was that killed the other healer. Aelin, Aedion, and Lysandra have currently fought a Valg that was directly tied to Erawan, which was kind of creepy. I did not like it. I did not like the eyes coming out of the chest and it throbbing, and it was weird, and I hated it. They have now chartered a ship to then go to Skull's Bay. So, like, they are about to leave, go to Skull's Bay.
Erawan basically threatened Rowan and Dorian, so now they gotta haul ass down there because they're stressed.
Yes. And
gotta find our friends.
At the end, Rowan agreed to teach Dorian some magic, which I also thought was very sweet.
Yay.
And a thing that we didn't touch on last episode, because we didn't get really much of the witches, Asterin was sentenced to death by Manon's grandmother, and it was directly said to be at Manon's hand. So that is unfortunately where we start this section, part 3.
Yay. Just some casual, chill vibes for the beginning of the episode.
Yes, so great.
So we begin the night before Asterin's death. Manon is up in the area with Abraxos, and she's sharpening her blade. Her goal is to save Asterin from as much pain as possible. So she is trying to prepare herself for the words of request, which is basically, like, as the head of her coven, she can request that she is the one to take her person's life, basically. So she's planning to do that, and her current third, I can't remember her name. Sorrel comes up to talk to her and is basically like, hey, she's dying to keep your secrets. And Manon, I think, is still not, like, fully against her grandmother, like, at this time. She's still, like, holding on to something. So her response is, then she will have served me well as second and will be remembered for it. I don't like it.
I think at this point she is against her grandmother, but also has no, like, she hasn't figured out a Hail Mary yet. She hasn't, like, figured out how she's gonna stop Asterin from dying. She's, like, pretty much just like, well, unfortunately, it is what it is, and I'm gonna do my best. Because they talked about
she's better than that.
The words of request, which is something along the lines, the way I understood it was that she can, like, claim this thing where she could immediately do, like, the final blow of Asterin, because I think she has this idea
she can claim her death.
Yeah. So others can't harm her prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the way it's sort of described. And her like internal dialogue is very much like, it's going to be a one and done. Like, I'm sharpening Windcleaver because I'm going to like behead her, and like that is it. Like, she's not going to suffer. She has no way out. She's just like, how can I make this as painless as possible for myself and for my best friend?
Yeah. So when she gets to the day of like the execution, she finds out that Asterin had been like Iskra, who is the one whose Covin members died because of Manon. She was basically like gifted blows to Asterin ahead of her being brought out, like in retribution for her Coven members. And Manon's pissed because she wasn't told. And also, Asterin's a fucking badass. And she's like, don't worry, Manon. They had to hold me down to be able to hurt me.
Yes.
Which is also sick and is still like, Manon, figure something out, please, for fuck's sake. Like, don't let her go, please. This is dumb.
But the best part is like that comment. She like, it is noted that Asterin like looks at Iskra or something along those lines. And she's like, the only way she was able to put those blows in was because I was tied up. Like, she needed me to be tied up to be able to like touch me even a little bit. And you're like,
be glad to know, Manon, that she had to chain me up to beat me.
Yes.
Okay, so Manon's pissed. And then the Yellow Legs matron basically is like, all right, everybody can get in line. Because the deal is that anyone from that clan can get their own like retribution hits in as well. And Manon basically is like, I invoke the right of execution because she's allowed to have the words of request where she gets to handle it herself in favor of like, no one else can do it because I can take care of my own, punishments to my own people. Cressida's the one that speaks up as well and grants it, which is great. So, or Cressida. She's the one that speaks up and says, for saving my daughter's life, wing leader, it shall be granted.
And there's literally nothing anyone can do.
Nothing anyone else can do.
Similar
which is sick.
To any scenario where it was like the 3 head witches have to like decide something, or if one head witch says something when it was like during the trials, like that was the end all be all. The fact that one matron said, I will grant this, literally no one can do anything about it. They can be mad, but it's just part of their kind of hierarchy that they can't do anything against it, which is just like chef's kiss.
It's so good. So Manon, like, she gets her request granted, and she goes up to Asterin with her sword, and she has her turn around. She says to Sorrel to turn her around. My second shall see the dawn one last time. And she's like hesitating, and her grandmother's being a fucking bitch. She's like, sometime before breakfast, Manon. And just as Manon draws her blade, the sunlight gilded the balcony as Asterin whispered so softly that only Manon could hear, bring my body back to the cabin. Oh. And something in Manon's chest broke so violently that she wondered if it was possible for no one to have heard it. She lifts her sword, and in this moment, everything that goes through Manon's mind is like, none of this is worth it. Like, it's not the brutality, the obedience, the discipline. It's all to keep them in line. It's all to just, like, have them be subservient as much as possible so that they can be controlled.
Yeah, she thinks of the Kraken Witch's, like, last words to her. She thinks of the Wyvern who would forever wait for their rider. Like, she thinks of all these things. She thinks of her connection with Abraxos. Like, all of these things are looping in her head of, like, what would Abraxos do if this was me? Like, there's just, it's like in that moment, her, like, the rock that was her heart just shatters into a million pieces and, like, is a heart again. And you're just like, yes, Manon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Manon looks at all of her 13 standing around Asterin in like a half circle, and one by one they lifted 2 fingers to their brows. A murmur went through the crowd, a gesture not to honor a high witch, but a witch queen. There had not been a queen of the witches in 500 years, either among Krakens or Iron Teeth, not one. Forgiveness shone in the faces of her 13, forgiveness, understanding, and loyalty that was not blind obedience, but forged in pain and battle, in shared victory and defeat, forged in hope for a better life, a better world. At last, Manon found Asterin's gaze, tears now rolling down her second's face, not from fear or pain, but in farewell. 100 years, and yet Manon wished she'd had more time. For a heartbeat, she thought of the blue sky mare in the eyrie, the wyvern that would wait and wait for a rider who would never return. Thought of a green, rocky land spreading to the western sea. Hand trembling, Asterin pressed her fingers to her brow and extended them. Bring our people home, Manon, she breathed. Manon angled Windcleaver, ready for the strike. The Blackbeat matron snapped, "Be done with it, Manon." Manon met Sorrel's eyes, then Asterin's, but Manon gave the 13 her final order, run. Then Manon Blackbeat whirled and brought Windcleaver down upon her grandmother.
This, I don't remember. I remember reading this and it being like either too close to like going to dinner when I was on the cruise or like something, and I was like, I need to read more right now. It's like I need it.
This is one of the greatest ways to end this chapter that I have read, that like she's written. She doesn't die, guys, because literally the next fucking page of the chapter is, she missed. Fuck.
Yeah, I was like, is she gonna beat her grandmother? Like, this is so good. And then she didn't, which is sad.
She didn't.
I was really hyped. I was like, okay, I'm here for Manon's villain arc. Like, let's do it. Or not villain, but
she's anti-hero. This is anti-hero arc, and I'm here for it. She's the villain, but we love her, and she's doing the right things. I don't care.
So her first blow does not kill her grandmother. To Manon's surprise, her grandmother is very fucking fast.
Jesus Christ. I was also very surprised.
So in that moment, it's her grandmother knew that she was going to turn around and on to her. Her grandmother demanded that they fight the old-fashioned way. Like, no swords allowed. Just iron teeth and iron nails.
She barely grazes her. Like, she did cut her, but in, like, a shallow line through, like, just right down the center of the body, basically. But, like, doesn't hurt her. Like, it just stings, basically. Like, I'm like,
it's like
what
a giant
the fuck?
paper cut.
But, yeah, so they agree to fight. They fight the old-fashioned way with nails and teeth. Yes. Just terrifying.
Yeah. The like coven that is directly related to the matron, so it's like the matron and her coven, and then Manon has her 13. The coven like immediately turns on Manon, and her grandmother is like, no, she's mine. Like, don't you dare touch her. It's a 1v1. And you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
The coven is ready to defend their matron. And Grandmom is like, no. This one's mine. Thank you. I'll take care of her myself. Which is terrifying.
Yeah. She pretty much yells at them to stay back.
Yeah.
We do this the ancient way, which is like, holy shit.
This is where we get a metric fuck ton of Manon lore. Just out of nowhere. All of a sudden. So, I think this is like... Grandma is clever. I hate her so much. But like, she, for someone whose main goal is to remove as much emotion from her people as much as possible. God, she knows how to emotionally manipulate people like a pro. So she basically gives her all of this information to distract her and as like to throw her off. She is like basically spewing at Manon that like you're as pathetic as your mother, like you're weak, and tells her that Manon is actually the daughter of her mother and a Kraken prince. And to recap slightly about the Krakens are the ones, if you remember ages and ages and ages ago, about when we first met Manon, she was killing them all.
Yes.
Because that was the goal, was to like wipe them all out. And the one that she killed previously, the one like way at the beginning, or not the beginning, like kind of in the middle, where like she brought that Kraken before the witches, that was actually Manon's half-sister, and making now Manon the last of the Kraken like royalty pace, basically.
Yeah, so she like pretty much is the heir to she's the only heir to that Kraken prince.
Yes.
At this point.
Which is one of the reasons why they were like looking for her, is to try to find her. And one of the reasons why like that whole conversation is now like kind of huge in a different light, because her half-sister was basically like, we feel sorry for you that you've just been emotionally manipulated and you are not, like, we can't take you and like make you a Kraken queen because you're like too far gone.
Yeah.
Just terrifying. It's so sad.
It's such a wild turn that I was very thrown off by the information, and then immediately, like you said, played that whole scenario over in my head, and I was like, she was trying to save Manon. Like, she was trying to get Manon and bring her back. So, like, you learn in this moment that the grandmother pretty much took Manon as a child from her mother, killed the prince, the Kraken prince, I believe. Then,
I think so.
Pretty much word got back to all of the children of the Kraken prince and like the rest of their family, and their goal was to rescue Manon. So kind of sort of this background of why the witches were going after the Krakens to begin with is to keep Manon in their group. Like, I don't really fully understand that whole aspect. It was like, you guys are going to kill, pretty much she was forcing Manon to kill her family.
Yeah.
And her, like,
because she wanted her to be the one to do it. Yeah. This is where I'm saying, like, her emotional manipulation is, like, crazy. Because she's just been saving it the whole time. She's been sitting there being like, all right, I'll have her kill her. That'll probably come up later and be helpful for me to just, you know, break her in soul and purpose in life. But yeah, so, like, they had searched. It says, like, they had finally learned the identity of their dead prince's lost child. That's why she was there spying. And that this one fucking hurt me so bad. She was your half-sister. She confessed it to me upon our tables. She thought it'd save her life. And when she saw what you had become, she chose to let that knowledge die with her.
In this whole, like, lore dump, too, Grandma gets a nice slice across Manon's stomach, which isn't great. In it, it's described that Abraxos roars from the pain. So this gives us another, like, tidbit that they're connected in some manner. Like, Abraxos feels her pain, even though he is, like, further away from them. He didn't see it happen. He just knows that she is gravely injured. And, like, Manon in that moment also notices that, like, oh, that cut is kind of deep. And it is described as her grandma is, like, saying all this stuff. Manon is, like, holding her guts inside of her during the entire fight. So she is one arm down against her stomach, holding pretty much her insides inside, and then is fighting with her other hand. Her body's not healing fast enough. Like, there's just so much. It's awful.
It's horrible, because she talks about her mom, too. Like, her mom basically told her grandmother that, like, she would be the one to be able to like break the curse and bring them together. That Manon was going to be the key. And her grandmother was like, I'm now going to turn her into the exact weapon against what you're talking about. And like when her grandmother found her dad, who she says he never stopped loving your mother, loving her, and loving you, so I killed him. She's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
His despair was delicious when I told him what I'd done to her, what I would make you into, not a child of peace, but of war.
So she finds out that she's killed her half-sister.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandmother is yelling at her, saying, "You're a Kraken." And she goes, "No, I'm a Blackbeak." And she's like, "No, you're a Kraken. The last of the royal bloodline. With the death of your sister at your own hand, you are a Kraken queen." And you're like, fuck. And then her grandmother says, "And you're gonna die like one. Okay, bye." And that's when Manon used the remainder of her strength to yeet backflip off a rock.
Yep. Backflip off the cliff, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she actually
she rolls.
But in our brain, she does a little backflip and just goes off the cliff.
Yeah. And of course, our favorite character, Abraxos. Catches her. We love Abraxos.
So they're hauling ass now. Abraxos catches her, and he's like, and we're leaving. Unfortunately, the Yellow Legs are not about to let that happen because, they wanted...
Iskra wanted to kill her from the beginning, so, now she knows she's a Kraken.
She's got a good reason to now.
She's like, now I can finally get my revenge.
And she doesn't want them led to the 13 either. So,
No.
Manon is like, her only goal is not to survive. It's just to lead all of them away so that they can't catch up with the rest of the 13.
Yeah. What's really cool is Manon lands on Abraxos, and then her two shadows also appear. So she told her 13 to run, but
they said
5 and
cute.
6?
No, not doing that.
What are the two sisters? They're like twins or something is like how it's described,
I think
but they're considered
they're 4th and 5th.
5th, yeah.
Because I think it's Manon is 1, Asterin is 2, Sorrel's 3rd, and then I think the 2 of them are 4 and 5. Unless maybe there's one more. I can't remember who the one who's like the book nerd.
Just
can't remember what her name is
or something. Gris. It starts with a G.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I can't remember if she's 4th or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, they're part of the 13.
High
we know
up there.
them as the Shadow. They are the Shadows. They pretty much go out and do searchy things, but
Yep.
cloaked in darkness and can never be seen.
They're
So of
spies.
course they're waiting for her. They're like, she's gonna get out of this and we're gonna figure it out. So we have 6 Yellow Legs pretty much chasing them on wyverns. We have Manon on Abraxos. We have the 2 Shadows. And so they pretty much communicate by just looking at each other, because that's just how the 13 work. And Manon goes one way, one shadow goes one way, another shadow goes the other. So they've now split them off. So it's not 6 versus 3, it's 2v1 in every scenario. And Manon's only goal is to get rid of these 2 Yellow Legs, because she has full faith that her shadows can also get rid of the other ones. And so Manon says to Abraxos, "Let's make it a final stand worthy of song." Which I was just like, goosebumps.
No, please.
She pretty much Abraxos is taking the other 2 wyvern through Star Wars maze scenario of you're just going through everything. He can take turns that no one else can take. Huh?
We're doing the Kessel Run.
Yeah. He can take turns that other wyverns can't because he's small, which everyone was like, hey, you're small, tweeny little wyvern. And she's like, watch this. So they slow down pretty much, get the other 2 wyvern to catch up. And then he banks right as a rock is coming and one witch is down. And then we're on to the next one. And she's like, all right, we got to figure this out. But pretty much her and Abraxos take out those 2 Yellow Legs. And right as the last one falls and you can hear the wyvern hit the ground and you know that the witch is also dead, Manon, just darkness takes over fully because she was bleeding out from her insides, which is not great. And that is how this section ends, unfortunately.
I don't know. We'll figure out if she's okay in like 10 chapters, I guess.
Manon does give Abraxos one last thing, and she just says oak. Right as she's blacking out, she just says oak. Luckily, he figures it out, and they go to Oakwald.
Oh, great. Okay. So helpful.
Spoiler for coming up when we get back to Empire of Storm. They're going to Oakwald, and Abraxos figured it out when she just said oak. Okay, so we've made it back to Tower of Dawn, and we are at the point where Irene has pretty much agreed, yes, I will trial basis help Kale.
Mm-hmm.
I think we ended with Kale being like, no, I don't want to talk about my shit, and bit on the leather strap and was like,
yep,
do the thing. And so now Irene is doing the thing. She is pushing her magic into Kale's kind of wound point, like wherever that scar is on his lower back. She is realizing that with talking to him and then what she's seeing inside his body, that this is a magic force that is pushing against her. And so she is trying really hard with her, like, it's described as her, like, white light is pressing against a dark wall, which we know is, or I think it's technically described as onyx, which, you know, as we are aware, onyx bad in this scenario. In everything that is Throne of Glass, onyx bad.
Mm-hmm.
She can also, similar to like the little blips that we got of like Dorian's internal dialogue when he had our choker necklace on, she is getting little glimpses of Morath through this like darkness. And she isn't sure if she is seeing this through Kale's eyes, so like he's seen Morath before, or what she's seeing it through. So it's she's getting the image of Morath, like she's looking through someone else's eyes. And that was like really scary to me because we know that Kale hasn't been to Morath as the reader. So who the fuck is she? Whose eyes is she looking through? I don't like. Hopefully it's just like a residual. We still don't know if it's just a residual magic from the king, but who knows? It could just be little images that the king left over in his body, but maybe it's not. Maybe there's actually something bad inside Kale, which we don't. This dark wall is not yielding to her magic.
At all.
Yeah.
Not a budge.
It's been hours. It's just not doing anything. So kind of our next image after she has finished pushing her magic into him is she is sprawled on the ground, like sweating, panting, like not doing good. Kale is also sweating, panting, not doing good, because they both just went under like so much like physical stress from her pushing her magic and trying to like kill off this darkness.
Yeah. I mean, she looks at the clock and it had been 5 hours.
Yeah.
And he had not asked her to stop. Like, she talks about like she is impressed and like obviously shocked that he was able to endure that for 5 hours and never asked for a break until the two of them got to the point where like she was hungry. Like he asked her if she needed a break and then they just kind of pass out there. Like,
yeah, she's exhausted. Like he's on, I don't know if he's on his bed or the couch. I know they did some things where she was doing her magic on when he's laying on the couch. Sometimes he's laying on the bed. I don't recall the exact positioning, but she's pretty much sitting up against whatever surface he's laying on, and she's on the ground. And he like pulls himself up and is like, do you need water? He immediately is like, what can I get you? Because he knows what's inside of him. So he's like, is she okay? You don't look well. And she's like, is this all part of that? Like, is this all part of your normal situation? She goes, yeah, I've definitely done this before. And he's like,
Bullshit.
are you sure about that? In her, like, internal dialogue, she goes, no, this would not be useful to healing. And perhaps is delaying everything because she doesn't know what she's doing in this exact scenario. Yeah. And you're like, fuck. I think at some point, Kale's, like, the person that helps him in his room. I don't want to call her a maid. Kadia, yeah. Kaja, she comes back and Irene is like, he needs tea. Like, he definitely needs tea, peppermint tea, and, like, orders that. Kale, of course, is like, we both need tea, and is, like, forcing her to take care of herself before he's willing to, like, recover from this. Because he's like, I've done this shit before. She has not experienced this yet. This is a point where we get little tidbits that Irene is starting to not hate Kale. Because they talk about it slightly. And he makes a comment along the lines of he feels like he deserves this. And we learn, or we know why he thinks that way. He feels like he deserves this because he let his best friend get taken over by the Valg. So, like, the least he could, in his mind, the least he could do is have to suffer the same way. Yeah. Which,
and, like, as part of her, as part of, like, she doesn't just see the stuff that's from, like, possibly the king or, like, however she's getting the images of Morath from whatever entity that is. She's also getting, like, Kale's bit as well. So she, like, can feel the pain that he's felt. She sees, like, replays of Nehemia's death, of Sorsha's death, and, like, Dorian getting taken over with the collar. Like, that stuff she all gets glimpses of, and I think that it's part of the reason that she's like, he's not full of shit, and he's not, because the whole reason that she didn't want to work with him in the first place was, like, he's, like, one of the king's, like,
he was a right-hand man.
So she's like, she's like, gonna be the same dude, same situation. No way he could have, like, he can't be redeemed. And now I think since she gets that direct first person, really, like, being able to see all that stuff through his eyes, through this, like, healing and the magic that he's having to, or, like, go through, it's just, she actually has that perspective now of, like, all right, not a total sack of shit. Great, cool. I guess I'll be nicer then. But she still hauls ass out of there. She's like, nope, I'm going to go. Thank you, though. This was great. I'm going to go do other things because I'm totally fine and chill and not at all about to just pass out in your room from exhaustion. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, then? We're gonna do this again tomorrow. And he's like,
yep.
You need a break, maybe? And she's like, nope, totally good. When time do you want to meet tomorrow? And he's like, I don't know. Here, I guess? Sure. So, yeah, they make plans to, like, meet up the next day. And then she just is like, cool, I'll see you in the courtyard at sunrise. Bye. Like, dips.
Yeah, they planned to ride the next day, I believe. Yeah. Like, that was going to be...
Their thing was, like...
They were going to meet so that they were going to... She sort of promised him that he'd be able to ride to, like, the next place. And so...
Because they're going to go to the lesson again, right? Or no, sorry. I couldn't remember if they were going to go and do the fighting workshop or whatever, or if they had, like, another place they were going to go.
I think at this point, it's like the physical therapy side.
Yeah.
So it's like she wants him to ride again. And so she said they'll meet in the courtyard so that they could ride instead of... Because they've done the first lesson, and I think she asked him to come back, but I don't think we get that secondary time that he goes back yet. Yeah, this whole, like, scene is, like, a big shift in Irene because of all of those things she sees inside of him. So she leaves. Nezrin comes back. As, in case you guys forgot, she went to go hang out with Sortek. She went flying on a rook, which is kind of cool.
Sick.
Pretty sick. She kind of asks Kale slightly. I think this is one of the scenarios where Nezrin is still trying to, like, maybe relate to Kale or, like, get more information out of him. Then he's, like, not letting anyone in, pretty much, as we are aware. She and Kale, I think, chat slightly about the attack, because that is when she found out from him, from Sortak, when he was flying around in the sky, and Kale found out from Irene right before their lesson.
Yeah.
Or their session, I guess, technically. Not lesson. He's not learning anything. He's just trying not to die.
Well, he's trying to get his legs back.
Yeah.
He'd like them back.
I mean, they're also trying not to die, because what the fuck is inside of him?
Yeah.
But, you know. So they kind of, like, download to each other what's going on. And this is when Kale orders her to go hunt for what they assume to be the Valg. Like, do similar things, like, go try to find the sewers, like, go pretty much do what we were doing in Rifthold, but here, and see if you can track something down. And she, of course, is like, absolutely, that was my same idea. That's what I plan to do. Cool. Sounds great. So she's like, I'm gonna go get ready to go do that. And he's like, yeah, sure. And just fucking conks out before she even leaves. Because he's just endured 5 hours of just pure agony, which, you know, I also would probably pass the fuck out.
Fucking exhausting.
So Nezrin does not go to dinner. Like, her plan is to go out and hunt. So your first kind of, like, glimpse is that Kale's getting ready to go to dinner. They kind of pass each other, and she is going out of the castle or the palace. And so no one really pays attention to Nezrin as she's leaving. She's in her full, like, get up too. Like, she is not in, at this point, while they were there, she changed her, like, clothing appearance to kind of blend into where they are. And she was wearing more of her, like, family garb. And now she has switched back and is now wearing her captain of the guard, like, uniform, or not necessarily her full uniform, but she's wearing things that are more of, like, I'm about to go hunt Valg.
Yeah, if she's about to go fighting, she's gotta...
Yeah, she has, like, fighting
leathers. There's a certain way
like,
she will dress.
Yeah, she's dressed to make sure that she can defend herself. So she's leaving the palace. She takes a route that goes through the garden, and while she's going through the garden, she notices the Coggin's wife is just sitting in this stone garden wearing all white. This, I think it is noted that the all white signifies that she's in mourning, which we know. This is the first time someone has actually, like, physically seen the Coggin's wife. At no other point has Kale or Nezrin actually physically with their eyeballs seen the Coggin's wife. Because when they first arrived, she was in mourning in a kind of a way. And at no point did she come out and, like, greet them in any manner. She had not been at dinner. Anytime the Coggin was missing from dinner, it was because he was having dinner with his wife in another location. So this is really our first time. So she kind of, like, internally is like, the fuck is up with that? Why is she out here? Like, is she okay? There are no guards around her. Of course, especially with the Valg situation going on, she's like, what's happening? And
on her way out, she runs into Sartak on her way out of the palace, and, like, he, like, sneaks up on her, and she, like, whips out a knife because she's, you know, like, skittish about to go out to, like, hunt Valg, and she's just, you know, almost threatens a member of the royal family with a knife. It's fine. And she, like, reports all of this to him as well. And, like, he's even kind of taken aback by it and is, like, was shocked that she saw his mother, and was also like looked concerned that there weren't any guards or like a handmaiden with her that she could see.
Yeah, I think it's noted that like as they're gonna pass through like the gates to go outside, he like talks to one of the guards that are there and like sends a message in of like, hey, can someone go like could someone go out to like the stone garden so that my mother's not by herself, especially with all the shit that's going on right now? I think they haven't done like an announcement that some shit's hit the fan. Like obviously people in the Torre know something happened and the Coggin and everyone in the palace knows, but we don't get the idea that like an announcement across the town has been made that something
about what happened at the Torre.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So it's very, at this point, kind of hush hush. So I think he is also in that mindset of like, hey, maybe the guards don't even have this extra information.
Yep.
So they're like, it's like, hey, my mother is in the garden. Can you check on her or send her like handmaid to be near her, like send someone to be with her so she's not alone, kind of thing. Nezrin pretty much tries to like ditch Sartak and is like, I got stuff I gotta do, and he's like, what's that stuff
where
you have to do?
Where are you going?
Where are you going? And she's like,
can I come with?
I'm just gonna go. And he's like, you're doing stuff for the Torre, right? And she's like, fuck. Okay, well, sure. I guess
they,
you
like,
can come.
Bond a little bit too over like because Nezrin lost her mother when she was like really young. So they like bond a little bit about, grief and loss. And I think it's like she's really starting to trust him with information and just him as a whole. So she talks about her family and like he shares some stuff as well about like his, like how he's been dealing with things. And I think it's kind of the last little bit of like bonding that brings her to trust Sartak with like the information about the Valg.
Yeah.
And like what she's talks about here to try to go do.
He also talks about his concern about his own mother and how she's handling kind of everything. Which is huge.
I think she thinks too that at this point it's like a good enough. Both her and Kael know that they need more of the family's support to get in front of the Coggin if they hope to get the Coggin's agreement to go help with anything. And at this point, she trusts Sartak enough to be like, okay, if we can get him on side, then we can get his help with getting the Coggin on side.
And even if, I think at this point, they're at this like mindset of like, even if we can't get the full Coggin, if we get their one son and all the rooks to like be a part of this, like we can maybe have some leg, like just a little bit more of an edge against flying wyverns, that are, very deadly. So, like you said, Nezrin is starting to trust Sartak a bit more. So she gives him a little bit more information as they're kind of like prowling through Antica on their way to the Torre. He pretty much is like, what are you looking for? Why do you think this is similar to what happened in like Rifthold? So she pretty much tells him. She tells Sartak about the Valg a bit more in detail, about how they were finding them in the sewers and they used the sewer system as like a means to get around. So she's kind of questioning, do you know if there's any like sewer routes that go into the Torre?
Yeah.
Are there other ways to get in the Torre besides like the front gate, which is where like your guards are, and like trying to figure out a bit more. And he's like, so what's your plan? She's like, I'm going to go in the sewers. And he's like, okay, I guess we're going in the sewers then. Cool.
I guess we're going together.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure as shit not letting you go by yourself.
Yeah. I think Sartak also doesn't 100% like trust Nezrin yet either. So they're on this like,
why would he?
Well, yeah, he doesn't really have a reason to.
Neither of them do. They're like, you've been what seems truthful with me so far. Mm-hmm. we'll continue to investigate this relationship until it no longer becomes useful for either of us.
Yes. So they go down into the sewers together. That is kind of where we leave Nezrin and Sartek. He doesn't really know of a sewer. Like, he pretty much alludes to that he is unsure if there is a path into the Torre. So, like, that's what they're going to go look for. Is if there's a weak point in their guarding of the Torre, which may be possible.
So we are back with Irene, and I do love the beginning of this chapter because the first line literally just says, Irene didn't care if someone came to murder her in her sleep, which is how I feel about sleep all the time. Leave me to sleep. I don't care. Just, God, I don't care. Leave me be. I need sleep. So she woke up late due to exhaustion from healing Kael consistently for 5 hours, which is probably too many hours to not take a break for either of them.
Oh, yeah.
And today is like the day that Kael's going to kind of learn how to ride a horse in this like new saddle that they have put together. So Kael, being impatient and eager, doesn't wait for her at all. And just like Irene comes down to where they were supposed to be, and Kael's like already trying to get on the horse, like has one of the guards there, like basically just helping support him. And he gets up on the horse before she even like comes around to like, and like makes her presence known. Which is awesome because although Kael is impatient
for Kael.
Yeah, he's impatient, but like in a good way of like he's like, I don't need to wait around to like get going if this is what we already know we're going to be doing today. So
it's the same. Like, I'm giving him 1 point for the first lesson when she came and he was working out and like doing the exercises she taught him a little before. He's getting 1 point for me for instead of stewing and being mad at Irene for being late, because that's a thing Kael is like, we know this about Kael. He's like very punctual. So like there's a tone that he's frustrated she's late. And instead of like harboring that frustration, he's actually like, okay, I will just try to mount this horse myself and see what happens. And he's a little wobbly. And so one of the guards kind of like shuffles over and is like, you can utilize my shoulder if you would like, sir. Like, just boop. And doesn't actually physically lift him up on. And it's like just enough.
He kind of just gets the horse, like, he's not so much got the guards help to help him on the horse, but just there in case something happens. Because she makes a note later too, and this is another point for Kael, that there's like a mounting ramp, like a ramp that he can use to like get closer to like the height of the horse to be able to get on. And she's like, that was there for you to use. And he's like, not going to have that on a battlefield. Got to figure out how to do it myself. And I was like, all right, fair point. Fair point. Good.
Fair enough.
I might as well learn to mount on my own. Okay. Anyways, moving on. And Kael also is like, you're going to ride too. And she's like, it's been a while. I'm good. And he's like, no, we're going to go ride together.
If I'm doing this, you're also doing this.
Yes. So he like gets them to bring like a horse out for her, and she gets on. Oh no, a length of leg and ankle are exposed during the process of mounting the horse, which sends all of the men into a tizzy, as we know.
Yeah, ankles and shoulders, really. Men have a thing for ankles and shoulders, according to
Kael noticed her attention and snapped his eyes up to hers. You have a good seat, he told her, as clinically as she often remarked on the status of her patients' bodies. Irene gave him an exasperated look before nodding her thanks to Shen and nudging her horse into a walk. She's like, all right, whatever.
There is also a little note that Irene has that pretty much says she could have sworn Kael was glowing on top of his horse. Like, this is the first time
he's so happy.
She has seen him even have the slightest hint of joy. And it's like, he's able to do a thing that he did not think he was going to be able to do.
And
again.
like, it's so much more freeing to be able, you can't walk, but like the general concept of riding a horse is the same. So like he has so much more control over where he wants to go on a horse that like he can feel normal again, which is awesome. I was very happy for him that he was on his horse.
I think that the next note I have is they were riding and Kale realized Irene may not be the best at everything.
She can ride a horse, but she did say it's been a while, okay? Give her some slack. I also am not good at riding a horse, so it's fine. She can do a million more things than I can.
I think it's just funny because she is, in the way the book describes her, is like she has succeeded in everything that she has attempted to do.
She's so accomplished.
And Kale's like, let me just throw a little wrench into this. Like, let me be good at something for once. Which I also
can't
was like,
use my legs, and I'm better at riding horses than you are. Okay, cool. It's not everything's terrible for me.
He does.
He also
there is
does.
A note. I was gonna say there's a note in his inner dialogue that says it was not walking again, but it was better than the chair.
Yeah,
and you're just like.
He also makes a note of it had been mortifying to be helped into the saddle like unruly baggage after he refused the mounting ramp. And it was like almost worse that it was from the guards because, you know, trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that part of it too was like he didn't want to wait because I don't think he wanted to try it with her also standing there.
Yeah, it's very much.
I think he wanted to try to do it on his own where he had less like embarrassment of like embarrassing himself in front of her.
I think he would, yeah, because
he
can
started
relate...
to even joke with her a little bit as well.
Yeah, because he can relate a little bit more to the guards. I think it felt safer in front of them. Like, at no point did any of them make any comments. Like, not one of them said anything about helping him. Not one of them asked if he wanted their help. They just made themselves available, which was another thing that he like noted. It's just like the way that they interacted with him was very similar to like the way he would with his guards. So it's just like they just existed to assist each other if needed and not like forced upon, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, I think that overall, other than his own guards that he trained, I don't think that he would have gotten the same respect if this were happening to him at home.
Yes.
Because he trained his guards well, but like he doesn't train all the guards. So yeah. He starts correcting her while she's riding. He says, lean forward, balance your weight. Irene gave him a sharp glare. I do know those things. He lifted his brows in a look that said, you could have fooled me. Oops.
I really, this book, like their interactions together, like the sass between the two, like make me like Kale a lot more than I did. I like that he like actually cares enough to like joke around with another person finally.
Yeah.
And it's because she won't give him like, she's not coddling him, which I think is what Kale needs as a character. Everyone else around him, anytime like he was injured, like all of these things happen, everyone is kind of like, this fragile being, and she's like, shut up. We're doing this thing. Stop being a bitch.
Like, I was about to say, I was like, you said something about him being like fragile. I was like, well, he does act like a fragile man-child half the time. So.
Well,
but she doesn't let him get away with acting like a fragile man-child.
There we go.
Point. And I'm like, this is why we like Irene. Because she makes Kale, she doesn't let Kale get away with his adult man-child attitude sometimes. Kale starts kind of questioning him a little bit. Like starts like asking her questions about like her last name and like where she's from. And And of course, because one of them can't do it without one-upping the other, she also starts prying for information at the same time. And Kale, of course, doesn't want to talk about it because he avoids his feelings like the plague. So he kind of like dodges her and doesn't want to answer questions. And she's like, dude, this is basically what's feeding on you. And it's like, I don't think she admits to him that like she's starting to see stuff, but like she does tell him like, you have to confront this because if it's feeding on you, like it's going to hurt both of us more for you to not deal with this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She says, you will need to talk about it at some point. I beheld glimpses of it within you yesterday. Isn't that enough? Not if it is what the thing inside you feeds on. Not if claiming ownership of it might help. And you're so certain of this? Irene straightened in her saddle. The trauma of any injury requires some internal reflection during the healing and aftermath. Great advice just in general to anyone going through anything.
To which Chaos replies, I don't want it, need it. I just want to stand to walk again.
Yep.
Cool.
Cool, Kale.
So they kind of have this conversation. Kale, once again, is combative and less than interested, not interested in any way whatsoever in dealing with the emotional side of his physical trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically when they kind of are like, all right, we're going to wrap up, go back home, get off these horses. They go back.
They
don't go back?
No. They arrive
at the
because
they're going from the tower.
From the palace to
they're going from the palace to the Torre. Because they're on their way to the...
He's going to give the lesson.
Okay.
So Kale and Irene make it to the Torre. Today is the day that Kale is going to give his lesson to the healers to kind of help them protect themselves. It is the thing that Irene has been doing on a like weekly basis or something. They do little like trainings so that everyone knows how to protect themselves and can defend themselves if needed. This is when Kale meets Hafiza as well, the head healer. And I wrote, because this is like the fucking worst thing ever, and in the entirety of me reading it, I was cringing because I was just like, you're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking idiot. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Like, have you not figured literally anything out about this man to begin with? Irene, for some fucking reason, decided that to get a man off a horse, a grown man, just a bunch of acolytes should just bring him down from the horse, and didn't think that would go poorly at all.
This is a good teaching moment, girls, on like how to get one of your patients down, and has like 5 or 6 young women who are all very excited to be able to do this. Like, they're all little students, and just like drag him down off the horse and like are attempting not to drop him. And Irene's just like, good job, guys. Like, you're doing great.
And
then
like he
doesn't talk to Kale
too
about it during the whole time. Like, there's no communication that's happening of like, hey, are you comfortable with all of them trying to take you down off nope. Just like, all right, girls, go for it. And they're all like, cool, sick, great. And like pull him down, and he almost falls. And then
Hafiza kind of like jumps in and catches him for the most part. And like she reads the room, and Irene does not. And Hafiza's like, okay, I think it's time to go. Like, okay, I think your lesson is good. Like, you're good right now. And pretty much like sends the girls like back to Irene, and Irene is talking to them. And he like, she is adjusting him in his chair of like, I'm so sorry. And like was trying to get his feet in a position. And she like looks at him and pretty much says like, would you like to do that? Or would you like me to help with that? Instead of just being like, I'm just going to do that for you, which is what all the little acolytes were doing. It's just like, okay, pull him down. Okay, let's get him in his chair. And it was just like, one, the most embarrassing thing in like Kale's inner dialogue the whole time is he's like having a panic attack. They haven't even started the lesson yet, and he pretty much has deemed himself as like a useless lump of just like meat. And you're like, oh, this is not good. This is not great. We took so many steps forward, and now we are probably just right on back to where we started, and he's just gonna lock down even more. I was cringing the whole fucking time.
So bad. It was so bad. But Hafiza does play it very well. So she basically is like, this is a place for learning, and like the girls are here to learn, and Irene's first instinct is to like let them learn. But Hafiza says at the end, she means well, my Irene. There are many other scars, my lord, beyond the one on her neck. And it's like, it brings him back to like out of his own rage for like what she did to him, and like distracts him. It's like, what do you mean? Wait, what? Huh? And then they kind of like jump right into the lesson.
Yeah.
And she says, where did we leave off last lesson? Irene asked the girl in the front. Eye gouge, she said with a broad smile. Kale nearly choked. Oh, it's so great.
You get, like, Kale's not thrilled, obviously. Nope. He's pissed off that this scenario happened, but he also, after Hafiza, like, says those things, does not want to take it out on the acolytes. Like, he realizes that it's like, he's pissed at Irene. He's not pissed at the acolytes because he pretty much let her in. Like, she's the only person he's let in even a little bit into like his psyche. And then she goes and does this. And you're like, as the reader, you're just like, come on, Irene.
I give Chaos so much shit. But this is like one of the only times where I'm like, Irene, what did you do?
Yes.
I'm like, Kale, you have every right to be furious. I
also would be pissed
right
if
now.
I was Kale.
I would be so angry. I'm angry on your behalf, and I never get angry on your behalf. I get angry at you consistently. I also love the little conversation that they have of like, okay, like what have we gone over? Like, what do we know already? Because he starts going down like the basics, and one of the girls pops up and is like, Irene already taught us all of that. Like, we know that stuff already. And then he kind of like goes through a couple more, and he says, what about ways to get a man my size or larger flipped onto their back in less than 2 moves? Some of the girls smiled as they shook their heads. It wasn't reassuring. He's a little terrified of them, which makes me really excited.
Yes.
I love it. Yes. I love that they're all like, no, teach us, please.
It's like, we didn't learn that one yet.
It's
I want to know how to do that.
Chaotic, like, feminine rage energy, and I'm so into it.
It's so good.
Yes.
So, I want to give Kale props because he still goes on with the lesson.
Absolutely.
Like,
I also think that he handles telling her how pissed relatively well.
Considering, yes. I think I would have handled it worse than he did.
Yeah. He does not actually broach the subject of why he's pissed for a while. Which is annoying. But also, he can't talk about his feelings, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah. He figures it, like, they get to it. They get to it, at least. But, like, they do have, like, they kind of yell a little bit at each other.
Yeah. They basically just, like, have a fight. Yeah. They basically just, like, have a fight and, like, leave each other in the, like, they get back and, like, kind of go separate ways once they get into the courtyard. Does she realize it on her own?
Irene felt the anger simmering off Kale as if it were heat rippling from a kettle. So she knows he's mad, has no fucking idea why.
She says later, Irene racked her memory for what she might have said during the lesson, what she might have forgotten. Like, what? Nope. Still not getting it, Irene? Not a thought in your head about what you maybe could have done that would have caused this level of frustration and anger? Okay, cool.
Kale returned. She notes that Kale returned their smiles, ladies, and to her shock, guards alike. So he pretty much was like beaming to everyone, and then anytime Irene made eye contact, he just went into like a glower, kind of like, I'm just not thrilled with you currently. And so that's when she's like, what the fuck did I do?
Yeah.
And of course she's getting mad because he's mad at her and she doesn't know why, which like also kind of fair, but also like, ma'am, you should have figured it out. It's pretty obvious.
He's the one that says it.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it in like a petty way, whatever, but like I'd be pissed too. He says, perhaps you should ask one of your acolytes to do it, or 5 of them, or whatever number you deem fit to deal with an Otterlanian lord. Okay, we didn't need the Otterlanian lord part at the end, Gal, but like, whatever. And she goes, it wasn't until it was repeated a second time that she recognized it. And, oh, sorry, that's when someone called her name.
They do go back to the palace.
He says it and she still doesn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Because she just blinks.
Mm-hmm.
He says it and she still doesn't make the connection in her head of like, oh, he's mad because of that.
Well, first, so they get back to the palace after the lesson. He's still pissed. She doesn't really know why. They get off, and so he makes a remark that's kind of alluding to, like, she doesn't believe he can do anything for himself anymore, even though every other time she has kind of, like, let him just do his own thing. So he says, are you going to push it or shall I? Referring to his wheelchair. Irene blinked. You can move it yourself just fine. She kind of understood his tone, but, like, didn't know what he's mad about. And that's, this is the part earlier that you were referring to, was perhaps you should ask one of your acolytes to do it, or 5 of them, or whatever number you deem fit.
Yep.
She blinked again, slowly, and didn't give him any warning as she strode off at a clip. Still not sure what's going on. She's just like, okay, he's mad? Yeah. I don't...
They're so dense, both at the same time. But, alright.
They did go their separate ways.
We love miscommunication so much.
Yeah, it's our favorite trope. They separate for a bit, which, honestly, they probably both needed time to cool off because she has no idea what's happening. She's just mad at him because he's mad at her and she doesn't know why. And he's mad because, obvious reasons. So he ends up, I think, working out. And she goes and visits Hussar.
Where she runs into Caution.
Mm-hmm.
Because Caution can't take a hint. Sweet boy.
No.
Poor man. I mean, seriously. Be careful. I know you made your thoughts clear. Caution, please. It doesn't change the fact that we are or were friends, Irene. It's like, yeah, but also, please, just leave me be. I can't.
Yeah, he is trying to, like, warn her that it's potentially Valg or whatever. Some being is attacking the Torre and, like, to be careful because he obviously is, like, in love with her, as we've figured out. Then they pivot.
I think he's
with
also,
the, like,
he is also
going?
concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is also concerned that, like, she's going to get too close to them when they don't really know them that well. Which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Although a little condescending. Because she's a healer and a professional, so.
She also has a history that, like, I think he knows about with Adelin.
True.
So it's like, you think she hasn't weighed all of these things already, sir? But, that's fine. She can't make decisions for herself. We love men that don't let women make decisions for themselves, or at least try.
Yeah. So they have this whole conversation, and then Kale, like, rolls around the corner. It's like, I almost feel bad for the man. And she's like, what the fuck? Were you listening? He's like, I couldn't hear anything you were saying, but I certainly saw him when he left. Oh, man. This is when she finally asks, did I do something to offend you today? He said it earlier, and you just still missed it? Okay. Which Kale ignores, because he can't communicate. And is like, pivots away. Asks why she shoves the prince away. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, just say the thing, okay? You already said it once. Like, I get you didn't pick up on it, but, like, Also, she says your piss poor attitude helps no one and nothing.
Yeah, she sends away Kaja again when they get to his room finally, and then she snaps at him because, of course, she's being polite during this whole thing of like, I don't know what's happening. Why are you mad? And then, of course, she snaps at him about his attitude, which kind of fair, but Irene, you're being a little...
She's dense. Like, yeah. Get it. Come on. Nesrin's also there when they get back, which is hilarious. Because basically Nesrin is like, what is going on?
Why are you guys arguing?
They're like, everything's fine. Also, we went to the Torre to do a self-defense lesson. And Nesrin's like, oh, that's great. He's like, yeah, on horseback. She goes, that's really great. And they're just like angrily saying things to Nesrin. And she's like, these all sound like good things. I don't understand what's happening right now.
Nesrin's eyes shot to Irene, bright and wide. You, how? Irene clarified, a brace. We were just about to resume our second lesson at healing. And you could truly ride? And Kale's just like, yeah, I could. I feel bad for Nesrin in a lot of these things. The thing that pisses me off,
too, is this next line literally says, Irene felt Kale's inward flinch, mostly because she flinched as well at the disbelief. Okay, Irene, if we're like, not, we have enough knowledge to draw the line that, like, Kale felt insulted by that comment and that it was the disbelief. How are we not getting the clearly stated words of, maybe you should have not had your acolytes take a grown man off of a horse? How did we miss that one, Irene? How? We're so introspective in this one sentence, but we've missed a full sentence that was said audibly. What? Oh, please.
Kale responds nicely to Nesrin,
make it make sense.
At least, and says, we didn't do anything fancy, just a fast walk. Maybe we'll try a trot tomorrow. And of course, Nesrin is still like excited. And she is like, I can go with you. I can show you the city. Perhaps my uncle's home. And that's when he said, I would like that. And then gave Nesrin a kiss on the cheek, which is like, he's trying to still have feelings for her. I think he's still like in his head a lot. And he's trying not to like put that on Nesrin, which is nice. And like Nesrin's excited and he's trying not to shut down her excitement, even though he's not. He was happy that he was able to ride the horse, but then, of course, we went back a few steps because Irene was being an idiot. And so then they go into their, like, second lesson. And Nesrin leaves, which is nice, which is fair. Does Irene ever figure it out?
I don't think so. I think we literally go through the whole next chapter and they don't have a I mean,
Oh, this is the point where he wheels towards his bedroom. This is how they switch from the couch to the bedroom, like when he's doing his whatever. And he starts wheeling to the bedroom and she goes, I prefer the sitting room. And his response says, I prefer to be in bed while in agony. And she's like, oh, and then he goes, and hopefully you won't pass out on the floor this time. You're like,
that one was really funny. He's like, look, if I'm going through it, I get to choose where I'm going, okay?
Tell me, Irene said, lingering. Yeah, she still doesn't fucking understand. Tell me, Irene said,
Fucking
lingering
God.
in the doorway. Tell me what I did to upset you. He peeled off his jacket. You mean beyond displaying me like some broken doll in front of your acolytes and having them haul me off that horse like a limp fish?
We're so proud. Communication.
She
even in a
stiffened.
sassy, rude tone. But yeah.
She kind of deserved it, in my
like
opinion.
a limp fish. Yeah.
That description
fair.
was perfect.
I just imagine it because his legs don't work, so they just...
Oh. No.
It's the
yes,
description she used.
It's true.
It's a limp fish. They're just dangling there. It's so sad.
Of course, so this is when they finally, like, hash it out, which is good. I'm glad Kale's, like, talking about it instead of just, like, letting it go. Granted, it's because Irene is pushing, which I think is what needed to happen, and we needed Kale to snap so that he actually, like, fucking word vomits what's happening in his brain, finally. She, of course, stiffens, is upset by this, and was, like, confused, blindsided by this, like, as being something that impacted him for some reason. Still don't understand why this blindsided her in any manner. But she goes, plenty of people help you here in the palace. And of course he goes, not as many as you'd think. And she, of course, tries to, like, cover herself. The Torre is a learning place. Like, you were injured. The acolytes I need to show them stuff. It's my responsibility to teach them. And he goes, of course, yes, your prized shattered horse. Look how well broken I am. How docile. I did not mean that, and you know it. She goes, it was precisely what I just said I wanted to show them. And he responds, I didn't want to show them. Because Irene never actually talked to him about it. Which I think is exactly the thing. It's like,
yep.
Honestly, if she said, hey, I would like them to assist you, or, like, taught
like,
them
not
how
the
to
first
work with
time.
him. Yeah.
Not the first time when he's, like, figuring it out.
Like, yes, he
goes
probably
through
would
the
have needed
motions.
assistance.
He goes
to come
through the
down
motions of, like, doing it himself the first time. And then you're like, cool, great, let's have a bunch of...
There's no way he could possibly get down on his own. He definitely didn't go up there on his own.
I don't know. It's a bad call. Bad call, Irene.
She does apologize, which I think is good. She doesn't, like, immediately go into anger.
She's capable of that.
Yes.
Kale is not.
But maybe it's teaching Kale that he also could apologize. And not just hold on to everything forever.
I feel like Aelin's apologized a couple of times and we still haven't gotten there, so.
Well.
Just saying.
To be fair, Aelin is kind of sassy back to him. And doesn't always
True,
say
but there are a couple of times
sorry.
where she does genuinely say sorry. And he's just like, well, whatever. Cool.
All right. To be
great.
fair, the last time when she apologized for everything and, like, downloaded a bunch of shit, he did apologize to her about, like, maybe it was he said the words to Dorian, likely.
Baby steps.
Yes. It was the end of
We're making baby steps.
Heir of Fire.
Yeah.
Where he is like, he finally realized that it was like, I was being a piece of shit and I wasn't accepting her, or I was accepting Dorian and his magic, but not her and hers. Like, he was just saying, like, one was okay, but the other one wasn't. And so that was, to me, was his, like, I'm sorry. Yeah, they fought. Kale admitted some form of struggling had occurred. I wrote one step forward, and then Irene admitted why she, like, gave him, like, one piece of information of herself. I think was, like, a nice little tidbit. She he kind of questions, like, why he says something along the lines of, like, you just think of me of, like, being part of Otterlin, and, like, this
he
is
says,
all you
just to
think.
be clear, is your grudge against me or Otterlin in general?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, Soldiers from Otterland burned my mother alive when I was 11. And before Kael could answer, she laid her hand on the mark atop his spine. Someone else is not great at communicating either, because she just drops some shit and then avoids the conversation that's going to happen after that. It's like, and we're getting to work. Magic! So during this time that this like next bit of healing that happens, we get Kael's side of the like perspective. He gets a bunch of flash-ins of Dorian and Sorsha and Aelin and Nehemia and like just pain and darkness and like just terrible shit. Yeah, it's great. The pain and darkness squeezed, crushing his bones to dust. He's in an immense amount of pain. Like, it's horrible. But he can see, like, Irene's, like, light.
Yeah, her magic. She can, like...
And, like, can feel her magic.
The pain is described as, he internally is saying, it would kill him, this pain. This endless churning pit of nothing. Irene's white light was a bubble inside of him. And then he opened his eyes. So, like, his background.
He's, like, he cannot get, like, around the pain of it. He's, like, feels like he's going to die. It's an endless pit of nothing. Churning endless pit of nothing, which is terrifying. And all he can see around this is her, like, white light from her magic. And then he suddenly, like, opens his eyes, and her hand, like, slips from his spine, and she's, like, bleeding. And she, like tries to turn away so that she can hide it, and she does not do it fast enough.
Nope.
And he kind of starts panicking, because he's like, you're hurt. It's, like, not a little bit of blood either. It's, like, soaking down, like, into her dress.
Yeah.
And she lies her goddamn pants off. He's like, is this normal? And she's like, yep, totally normal, super fine, it's all good. He's like, you're full of it, liar. And she just kind of, like, plays it off as, like, I just need to go and, like, rest. It'll be fine. Bullshit. She says that, she's like, I went there to the site of the scar, and it was the same as before, a wall that no strike of my magic could crumble. I think it showed me Morath. It showed some memories left behind in you. It showed me a great black fortress full of horrors, an army waiting in the mountains around it. They try to figure out, like, if it's real or not, and, like, she's like, I don't know. I have no way to tell.
Yeah, she said,
but
I don't know.
It felt like a living thing. Not a living thing, but as if it was a memory that were set free in the world.
She doesn't know if it's, like, living Valg remnants inside of him, or just because where he was struck, she doesn't know that he was struck by the king, but she knows, like, it was in this, like, big before the castle fell situation. She knows it was, like, that scenario. So she doesn't know if, like, there's just a piece of magic stuck inside of him that they hit him with, and it's just kind of there lingering, and she needs to, like, break it up and, like, get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Or if there is, like, a thing controlling it inside of him, and that's how it's, like, feeding on him. But she makes the note of, I don't know if it's alive, but then I heard you screaming, like, inside of himself. And she realized at that point that it was attacking, that when she was attacking the wall, which is where this, like, point of injury is, there was something else going around her. The wall was just a distraction, and something else was attacking, like, his psyche, and was trying to, like, break him down from the inside. Which is terrifying, because that is exactly how it worked for everyone else. Like, anytime a Valg was inside someone else because of a ring or the toque, whatever the fuck it's called, the necklace choker thing, it was, there was a being inside this person attacking their soul. And so that's what she sees. And she like sneaks up on it and attacks it and kind of like kills off that little piece.
It's like the magic that they wield is part of them. They're like little Horcruxes. They're like putting that shit in your body, and it's just a part of you now. It's horrifying. He like says sorry for like what happened to her mother. My God, the words "I'm sorry" come out of his mouth. He's able to apologize for things that aren't his fault, but other people's fault. Cool. And he has like a little emotional breakthrough. He like talks about Dorian. About how the king of Otterland butchered the woman Dorian loved in front of me, and he couldn't do anything to stop it. He couldn't save her. He, like, when the king went to kill me for planning to overthrow him, Dorian stepped in. He took on his father and bought me time to run, and I ran because there was no one else to carry on the rebellion. He says he fled. And Irene says, he's fine now, though. And Chaol says, I don't know. He is free. He is alive. But is he fine? He suffered greatly in ways I can't begin to. His throat tightened to the point of pain. It should have been me. I had always planned for it to be me instead. We have an emotional breakthrough. And what happens when Chaol has an emotional breakthrough? He moves his toes.
Yes. He wiggles his toes.
Because your emotions are tied to your trauma, buddy. Okay? This is what Irene has been saying this whole time. And as soon as you start to break through your emotional trauma, voila! You can move your legs. This is great.
Chaol is like, it's described as Chaol, like a tear comes down. Chaol clenched his fist, the tear seeping into his skin to keep from turning her face towards his again, to read her eyes. But her head whipped upwards so fast she nearly knocked his nose. The golden Irene's eyes flared. Chaol, she breathed. And he thought it might have been the first time she'd call him such. But she looked down, dragging his stare with her, down his bare torso, his bare legs to his toes, so slowly curling and uncurling as if trying to remember the movement. And that's the end of the frickin' chapter. And you're like, what the fuck? Chaol moves his feet. I wrote in all caps, Chaol moved his toes. Exclamation point.
This is also for like the people who decide to do the tandem. This is also when they make you switch back to Empire Storms. Mm-hmm. And then, spoiler alert, when you get back to Tower of Dawn, it's a fucking Nezrin chapter. So like we don't get any more resolution about Chaol and his moving feet for like a minute. And I was mad. I was like, come on. Like, what do you, is he happy about it? Because he didn't even fucking notice. Irene had to point it out. So
he didn't feel
it's great. It's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do really, I don't know who came up with like what chapters to like switch back and forth to, because it is mostly to keep in line with like story stuff, but they obviously like have some time where they can like make a decision of like where to cut to and they pick the ones that exactly what's happened to Kat multiple times that I feel like Sarah writes in hopes that you'll just be reading it right before you have to go somewhere, right before you go to bed, and you're like, fuck, come on. Like, let me keep reading, but I don't have time.
I think the way they set it up, you've said really this to me, that you are enjoying the tandem read more than you enjoyed reading the two individual books separately. And I think whoever set this up, and like, we can go and look back at that to like give credit to who set up this romantic read. But they set it up in a way to make the reader want to go back to Tower of Dawn, which I know a lot of people had a hard time getting through Tower of Dawn as a book by itself. So they're giving you like, okay, these are chapters you're not going to really like. Let's get to one that like have a little cliffhanger. So like we get to know that Chaol has moved his feet. And then they're like, let me give you a little Empire of Storm to keep you up and like keep your hype.
And I think that I love Empire Storm so much on its own, as its own book. It's fantastic because I think the difference is that in this book, in Empire of Storms,
There's so many characters.
you get Aelin and Lorcan as your like break, basically. So like when you get to the point where it's like, what's going on with Aelin and all of them, you get that like suspense of like leaving them to go to like learn about Manon or Aelin and Lorcan. In Tower of Dawn, it's literally just Chaol and Nesryn, like back and forth. And to be honest, I just don't. I'm trying to think, like, I could read a whole book just about Manon, if I'm being honest. I don't know if I could read a whole book that's just like Aelin and Lorcan.
I don't
like
think
I would, but it just like, again, like you see what I'm talking about? Where like it's 800 pages of like just those two as main characters. It seems like a lot of weight to put on this thick of a book.
Of the characters in that book, right now, we only have background of Chaol and Nesryn. So those are our people we're following that we already know a lot about. And like we're getting little bits of the Coggin and little bits of all these new people where it feels like a lot of backstory.
At the same time, we got like we're talking about 15 characters.
But Empire of Storm are characters we already like and adore.
I know, but now I gotta pay attention to more people.
Now we have to learn new people.
You told me there's like 7 people I have to care about in this book, and then it's like, okay, great, put that down, take a break. Here's 8 more. Don't worry about any of these people for this whole book, but learn about these 8 more people and give a shit about them.
My point is, though, with Empire of Storms, you already care about them because you've already gotten their backstory.
Sure.
And so you're like, okay, I want to know more. I want to know more.
It feels nice that it's like I'm getting a little bit more every time. Like I maybe get 2 new characters I have to give a shit about every book. It just goes from like, I knew most of these people, and then I get like, I don't know, is there actually anyone new that I care about in this book? Because you know Aelin.
You get more about Lorcan. I think this book gives you a lot more about Lorcan.
True. Absolutely.
And the
other guys too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Chaol moved his toes, and now we're going to go jump over to Empire of Storm. The last chapter of Chaol is him moving his toes until our next episode. So, sorry guys.
It's not our fault.
Chaol moved his toes. And so we're going to end, that's us ending on a high with Chaol though. Like he did a thing. Sick. After he was we got through his like, the temper tantrum of the 2 of them, and now high because he moved his feet. Well, toes, not feet.
We're getting there.
So, as we are aware, Aelin and Lorcan are traveling together through Oakwald Forest. I think at the end of the last section that we read with them involved, they finally agreed to travel together. And then we realized that Aelin was traveling the wrong direction, and she was not headed towards Terrasen, and she was headed back towards Adelin for some reason. She was not going north like she was supposed to. And
look, Lorcan got her all turned around, okay, because he chased her or whatever, and she just lost her sense of direction. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. So, he shares the information with her that they're 2 days out from Acanthus waters, which is like the river system that attaches to the waterway that is Adelin. And I can't remember what that one is called now.
I don't know. The Florine. I don't know. I pulled that out of my butt. I don't actually know if that's right.
I think that might be.
Oh shit, I got it right. No, that's up by Orinth though. Is it the Avery?
The Avery.
Avery's. Yeah. The Florine is actually from this series though. It's up by Orinth.
Sick. My brain immediately went to Crescent City. I was like, is that the Crescent
City? I know. Well, that's
City?
Funny because my brain went, I don't know. I feel like that's from Akatar.
Somewhere in this.
One of those
It's
three.
in the Sarah J. Maas universe.
Somewhere in this universe.
Yeah. So,
oh, geez.
We found out they're not necessarily headed in the correct direction, but they make it to this waterway.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a river. Not fully sure, but it just says Acanthus water. So we're going to go with river / creek. Not creek. It's large. It's large. River. River's large.
I don't know. You make the furniture for fish, not me.
Rivers are large. You live next to a river. It's large.
We do. Could you cross it without a bridge? Probably not.
You could swim across it, take a while.
Not that
And be
river. I'm
cold.
good, thanks. It's cold as shit.
Yeah. We also, like, Lorcan is keeping secrets. Aelin is keeping secrets.
Yeah.
I wrote, Aelin knows Lorcan is keeping secrets. We figure that out. Pretty much her inner dialogue is that I know Lorcan is keeping secrets from me. And then Lorcan's inner dialogue is, there's something this girl isn't telling me. Okay, cool. They both know that each other's keeping secrets.
What's funny, though, is I think Aelin knows more. Aelid's just so much better at catching him in a lie than she is. Because, like, Lorcan just straight up believes that her name is whatever she told him.
Didn't she
Marion?
say Marion? Yeah.
He believes that. He's like, yeah, right, cool.
Yeah, sure.
And Aelin is just like, I feel like everything that comes out of Lorcan's mouth, she's like, that's a lie.
Yeah.
It's just like, doesn't say it out loud. And Lorcan is like, just more oblivious. He knows that she's hiding stuff, but he's not nearly as good at picking it out as Aelin is. Like,
Yeah.
all of Eileen's dialogue is like, that's not correct. That's not true. He's
lying
that.
to me.
They get basically to the river, and Lorcan is like, if your plan to blend in is gonna work, like, we should probably prep. And she's like, what are you talking to me about? Like, you're the Fae.
You're the one
like,
with pointy
ditch
ears.
ditch the swords, ditch the weapons, like, pretend to be human, please.
Mhm.
That would be great.
Pretend a little bit.
She just like manhandles him. Is like so demanding of this person who is one of the most not terrifying but intimidating people described as one of the most intimidating people in the book. And she's like, all right, you got to tie your hair back, you got to like unbutton your jacket, get rid of your swords and shit. She just doesn't give a shit.
She also like changes up her appearance slightly, which I think is so funny because she like shows off some skin. Like, she knows how to be a woman around a bunch of men and them not think anything of her. So she does something to pretty much like push her boobs up, and his response to that was, bigger tits won't prove or hide anything. And I was just like, okay, sure. Watch it work, actually, sir.
Mm-hmm. She like puts her hair up too, like he
to, like,
says,
show
like
off.
a married woman's hairstyle to like make her look older, and it's just so funny.
Yeah, so good.
Your tits won't prove any. God, it's so good.
She does kind of ask for his help a little bit. This is where her plan. So like, we left and she had a plan to like get them through this area, and her plan is for them to be human and to kind of like maybe hitch a ride with someone across this like bridge across this river. And so she says something along the lines of like, it'll be very noticeable, my limp, sir, magic man. If you could maybe help me with that, if you could. And so he goes, oh yeah, sure. Like, it's nothing. And his magic is similar, like some of his magic is similar to Rowan's in the way that like he can manipulate air and like air and space, like in and around them. So he pretty much uses that ability to manipulate like the air and space around her, and like makes like a makeshift air cast with his mind around her leg. And like, it's the first time she has walked straight in years. And of course she has a like mini emotional response, which I thought was, I put a crying face emoji and wrote in all caps, Lorcan used his magic to brace her ankle. Because in that moment I went, Oh, he actually did a thing.
She
and,
didn't allow herself to
question
enjoy it, savor it, not when it would likely only last until they cleared the bridge. It hurts. She also, once they get to like the front, or once they get towards the front, she's like, I don't have any money. Like, I won't have any money to like help get in. And he's like, don't worry, I've got it. Like, I have plenty of money. We'll be fine. And they kind of discuss like what their story is
they're
gonna
married.
be. Yeah. And
she's
like,
he goes brother. And she goes,
she's
husband.
like, we're married. It's like, no, we're not doing the brother-sister thing. Husband. And she's like, she like tries to explain to him that like brothers is not enough, dude. Like, brother still means I'm available. Like, no one's gonna be threatened by the brother, but they will be threatened by the husband, okay? So. And Lorcan's like, no, thank you. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, he very much is like, no.
As soon as any man looks in her direction, he's like, just kidding, we're good. I will pretend to be her husband. This is fine.
Yeah, he goes,
okay, cool.
Protective fey male over a woman is like, grrr, like growls at people pretty much. And she like squeezes his hand be like, calm the fuck down. Hello?
Ugh. It's so funny.
They make a like show of them like going to wait in line to cross this bridge, and then they're like, oh, I'm so hungry like from traveling, like let's go into the little cafe or like tavern. And so they go into the tavern and like sit down to have a meal. And of course they place themselves in a location that they can kind of listen.
Yeah. And they're like, trying to find like a way to get in. Mm-hmm. And they stumble across like a group of performers that they basically are like, they're complaining about like not having the money to get through the gate. And Aelin is like, we've got money. Like, we've been in performing troops like before. Like, let us come and like be part of your group and we'll help like pay for the toll to get through it. And they're like, no, we're good. We don't need you guys.
We're full.
And Aelin is like, no, it's a good act. Like, we were part of Baba Yellowlegs' troop or whatever. And they're like,
what'd you do for Baba Yellowlegs?
She goes, well, my husband throws knives.
And like
Lorcan's like, what the fuck?
The way they describe it is Lorcan like glares at her like, the fuck are you talking about? And she's like, see, look at his knives.
Look at those knives.
Look at the knives that I told him to hide on
his body. Was it like she tells fortunes or something like that?
She's like, I can't actually read fortunes, but I just tell them. Like,
I worked with Baba Yellowlegs, like, in the fortune-telling part of the biz.
Mm-hmm.
So. Anyways, they, like, make it... They, like, get into the troop or whatever. Like, they're like, all right, fine. Yeah, you can come with us.
Yeah.
The, like, first line of Lorcan's perspective is, his wife, God's above.
So good.
It's so good. His wife,
then
not
also
that Marion was hard on the eyes, as he noted as he obeyed Molly's barked order to climb into the back of the wagon. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Yeah, they pretty much, the troop says like, yeah, sure. Temporary stint, you can come. Yeah, if you're shit, you're out, kind of thing. And they're like, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
We're good. It's so funny.
He was over 500 years old, and this girl, young woman, she-devil, whatever she was, had just bluffed and lied her way into a job. A sword thrower, indeed.
Aelin is so clever.
Yes, she is.
She's so smart. I love her so much.
It's so good.
They also learn... They get a ton of information from this troop of people because they've been around, and they've been around where all of our favorite people have been around very recently.
Mm-hmm.
So this is basically how Lorcan and Aelin find out about what's been going on with Aelin and Dorian, that the castle's been destroyed, that the king is dead, and that Aelin is like out and about fine. it's all just rumors. So like Aelin and Lorcan are like, okay, cool. Likely that like they're alive and that all of this stuff is true. But they can't confirm any of the like, you know, known details.
Lorcan also obviously knows a lot of the information that they've given them too, because it said, rumor claims her court is strong though. A shapeshifter guards her back, and 2 warrior princes flank her on either side. So Lorcan's like, okay, well, Rowan's still alive. Dorian is still alive. Aedion is still alive.
Yeah. And he knows Lysandra is too.
Yeah.
Because they say shapeshifter.
Correct. Yeah. So, like, you get this kind of, like, Lorcan is like, okay, check. They're still alive.
And Aelin is like, great. Everyone that I give a shit about right now is still alive. Which
Aelin.
is just Aelin.
She goes, okay, Aelin's cool. And
who is
she's
definitely
being protected.
not Selena.
Yes.
Who she's now trying to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I put a note that Lorcan noticed Aelin shaking. It wasn't in fear, but in anger, because they're like second guessing Aelin and her ability to like actually really do anything. And Aelin to her core like believes in Aelin. And Lorcan realizes like that she isn't scared. She's just mad that these people don't believe in her queen. Which I liked that little tidbit because the whole time,
I mean, one of them does
realizing,
question, like, one of them literally says, like, I don't know if the world should rest in her hands.
Mm-hmm.
And Aelin's like, what are you talking about?
She will
win everything.
I just like this this whole time that they're moving throughout. Lorcan has this idea of Aelin of being this like weak little 18-year-old girl, and he's this like strong 500-year-old fae guy. And every step of the way, he's like getting a little bit more of like, this chick's kind of scary.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, okay. And then
there's so also much stronger than anyone gives her credit for.
Yeah, and then
she's fantastic.
There's the point where they're like, he was hunting her and she always knew that he was around, and he was like, how the fuck does she know that I exist? No one can find me. Even Rowan didn't know he was coming up on them when he was coming up on them. But like Aelin somehow knew, and you're like, fuck. She's so good. I love her as a character.
Lorcan's also such a sad sack.
Mm-hmm.
I think I find him like, maybe it's because I hadn't been with Lorcan for as long as Chaol, but like they do have a very sort of like pessimistic outlook on life. Like the last bit of this chapter is, for all her rage, a tentative sort of wonder grew in her eyes. Talking about Aelin. He ignored it. Lorcan had seen the worst and best of men for 500 years. There was no such thing as a better world, no such thing as a happy ending, because there were no endings, and there would be nothing waiting for them in this war, nothing waiting for an escaped slave girl, but a shallow grave. I'm like, damn, dude, chill. Back it up a little bit. God damn. So, Lorcan doesn't believe in joy or hope. He's just, I shall exist.
He's had 500 years of, like, being pretty much a slave to Maeve.
True.
So, sort of. He, chose the life.
He sees Rowan's shit, and he's like, nah. Not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Aelin and Lorcan made it across, and now we are getting our final chapter with Nesrin for this episode. And it was the day that Nesrin was hoping that Chaol would go with her to her family's home.
Ride horses around town and visit her family, yeah.
Yeah. He passes on that because he's fucking, like, dead to the world right now because, you know, he just had, like, the most intense thing that happened to his body. So she goes off to her family's house. Anyway, pretty much every day Nesrin, like, is visiting her family. She's kind of going to see them as much as she can, which is great. This is the first bit of kind of background of her family's home that we actually get, which I thought was kind of cool. They describe the house being typical of the Balrune.
Yeah, that sounds right. Balrune
And
people?
yeah, the Balrune people, which is like her like descendants.
Yeah.
It describes that there were 2 guards that beckoned her in so that this house is guarded. I don't think it's always guarded. The way they brought it up, it sounded like this was something that has now happened because of the Torre.
I think it's part the Torre, and I think it's part Nesrin's warnings to her family that she's sent.
She's been warning them a lot.
She's been giving them information about, like, hey,
stuff that happened in Rifthold and like things like that.
I'm being targeted. You guys might be targeted. Just take some precautions. Thanks.
Yeah. It revealed a shaded, broad courtyard of pale stone flanked by pillars crawling with magenta Borgain Bill? What the fuck?
I don't know that word. Where are you?
It's the first page of chapter 17. An ornamental climbing plant that is widely cultivated in the tropics, so I wouldn't know it.
You were Googling it.
Well, hi, buddy. I just highlighted the word in my Kindle.
Oh, out of the books, please.
I just did a Kindle highlight. In case anyone watching was unaware.
Kindle review.
You can highlight your word, and then it'll search the Oxford Dictionary, which is great. An ornamental climbing plant that is widely cultivated in the tropics. The insignificant flowers are surrounded by brightly colored papery bracts that persist on the plant for a long time. Bjorn, what are you doing?
He wanted to be in his little... He wants to be held like a baby.
The way that he looked like he was falling down was like...
He was falling down on purpose. This is what he does. He literally crawls into my lap and then he flips himself over backwards.
Okay.
So, you just gonna lay there like a good boy?
Maybe.
You're so close, but you can... That was a no.
He's like, no. You adjusted. I didn't like it.
Desk instead. Okay. Just stay there and be good and don't rub your face on my microphone.
Okay. Well, they describe it as kind of like a tropical place, which makes sense because they're in kind of like a very hot, deserty style location.
It makes me think like Oasis temples type thing. And they're like so pretty and so luxurious. And like she talks about how her aunt is like a full-figured, beautiful woman whose 4 children had not slowed her down one bit. And like her uncle's study is like out for everyone to like kind of see and is accessible. And the kids, she goes over like while the kids are at school because everyone in this place gets to go to school for free. Mm-hmm. All of the children. And it's like free of charge. Like it just, the way that Nesrin describes this place, because you're getting it like from her perspective, is like utopia. Like it's just everything's great and her family's happy and like the kids are happy and everyone's well fed, and then like she's coming from Otterland where it's just like none of that has happened. None of it has happened. Mm-hmm. And it's just sad where she's been from, which is depressing.
I also love that it's the very family thing. Her aunt, the first thing she asks, have you eaten today? And Nesrin goes, I saved myself for your table. And I was just like, that is such a, like, very family thing. Or at least, it's a very Italian family thing. Like, have you eaten? Sure. Well, I'm going to feed you anyway, whether you've eaten or not.
She goes to her families to eat and to hang out. But she's also, like, there to warn them. She warns them of the Torre and, like, how things are kind of becoming... The issues that were happening in Otterland are, like, gonna become an issue here, probably. She's also there to warn her family, like, about the Torre and the fact that things are becoming the same as they were, like, in Otterland, and to just, like, be on their guard. And they're concerned for her as well, which is so nice. They're like, again, I just like the fact that the way that they talk about this family is like so different than anything that we've heard previously.
Yeah.
Like no one else's family has been talked about like this. It's like she's got the only stable, healthy family that's out there. It's so sad.
It's so good.
It's so nice. It is a breath of fresh air. They were all like super jealous about riding on.
Oh yeah, they pretty much
because
were like,
they had heard. They were like,
we heard someone
so
spent some time with Sartak, and she's like, mind your business.
Chillax. I didn't want to brag about being on Kadara to the children. The children were beside themselves with excitement that their beloved cousin had ridden on Kadara herself. I did not want to brag. Was all her uncle replied. Mischief danced in his gaze. But Nezrin's aunt gave her a knowing look, steel in her brown eyes, as if she too did not forget for one moment the family who remained in Otterlin, and perhaps now tried to flee to these shores. Her aunt simply said, "The rooks will not fear wyverns." That's if the Coggin agrees to let them meet in battle at all. Please.
I have faith that they will, and I think Nezrin does too, and I think we need to have faith that they will, and it'll be okay. Everything will be fine.
I think we need to have faith in Sarah J. Maas that she's not going to put us through 800 pages of learning about rooks to just be like, nah, just kidding, never mind, he said no. We hope. So that is it for Tower of Dawn. And now we have one more chapter where we get to go back to Rowan and Dorian.
Yeah, the last we talked to Rowan and Dorian, they were still on their way to Skulls Bay, and Rowan had agreed to teach Dorian a little magic, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah.
One thing that me as the reader kind of didn't think about is that they were traveling for days and days from Rifthold, and to protect them, the only person that could use their magic on this tiny little boat, because Dorian doesn't know how, was Rowan. So Rowan had not rested for days as they traveled, and he was either
pushing the
boat with his wind magic, or he was transforming into a bird and flying ahead to make sure there was nobody there that was about to greet them on like a ship to like, you know, take them out, you know, still back to using his wind to like push the boat. And you're just like, okay, kind of forgot about that. And so he is feeling the edges of burnout, which is not great. And they're about to get to Skulls Bay. And of course, they don't know if anything bad lies there. So we have Dorian, who knows very little about his magic and can kind of barely use it. And then Rowan is on the verge of burnout. So maybe not the best scenario for entering into Skulls Bay, but they
also, the best part about them getting into Skulls Bay is that, like, Rowan finally sees the actual damage that she... Because if you don't remember, in the Assassin's Blade, you've got, like, the first one is literally, like, the Assassin and the Pirate Lord, which is this whole situation. When she was still an assassin. And she kind of, like, fucking blew shit up on her way out.
Yeah, her and Sam did a lot of damage.
Yeah, so I like the way that Rowan wasn't surprised, but seeing the scope of the hell she had unleashed. Holy gods. Yeah, that was such a good line to read of like, oh, wait, I forgot about that. So the sea dragon is in the harbor, and that is basically Rolf's like rolling office. So him and Dorian, their goal is to get onto the sea dragon to meet with Rolf. They talked about, you know, if maybe like the map is still gonna work because now magic is back.
Yeah, they weren't sure. I get Dorian kind of questions whether or not, because Dorian knows of the map because Aelin told Dorian kind of the backstory of her time at Skulls Bay as well. Rowan also knows because she told him about it. So they're kind of wondering if it would work.
Yeah.
They
And at this
also
point,
get
they've
this
like,
weird magic feeling the
yeah,
whole
so like
time
they're
there.
on the way to the inn. I like the way that Rowan does it too, because like they make it to the inn and they feel something, and Rowan's like, all right, what do you like sense? Like, how does it feel? Because I think Rowan can feel it too, but like if he's gonna fucking train Dorian, he's like, all right, let's go. Like, we're starting now. And he like describes it as it feels old, feral, and ruthless, but I can't glean anything more. And he asks, like, does it remind you of Valg? And Dorian's like, no, they were abhorrent to my magic. But this thing out there, it just makes my magic curious. Wary, but curious. But it's concealed somehow. So they basically are like, all right, stay close and, like, keep alert. So they, like, go into the inn and they're kind of, like, talking about the map and, like, looking around. He makes some comment about, or Dorian thinks in his head, like, perhaps Aelin's arrival would be well known before she set foot on this island. It's like, there's a lot of guards around, and, like, people are already on alert. Like, I think that part of it is that they can also kind of feel it, too, because a lot of these people have some sort of, like, it's known that a lot of people hid their magic, even if they did have it, because it was so dangerous. So, like, I don't think that it's one of those things now where no one would be able to detect it because magic is, like, completely gone. It's just everyone's been hiding. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they also talk about how they can feel a magic pull. So Rowan knows that Rolf is there, and Rolf knows that they've arrived, which is why they are like, well, we're not going to the inn to rest. We're going to go to the Sea Dragon, I guess, and go talk to Rolf's buddies. And that's kind of where the magic is pulling them anyway. It's like the heart of where they feel this magic kind of pulsing in the city that they're in now.
They go, like, into the bar, and literally, like, the barmaid like just like walks right up to them and is like, he was wondering when you two would come snooping. And they're like, what? Huh? He's like, captain's waiting for you on his ship, like, you can just go.
In the office.
In
Upstairs.
his office.
Yeah.
Captain's waiting for you in his office, like, go see him. So, like, they're not sneaky or stealthy in any way whatsoever. Like, they either know what they look like already, or they're just, like, he can sense them.
Yeah. Or his map works, and they were like, well, here's this tiny little, like, rowboat just moving faster than it should be.
I didn't think about that. I genuinely didn't think about that.
It's all I thought when they said
my God.
the captain was waiting for you. My brain just pictured a man looking at his map arm and watching this tiny little, like,
How
rowboat.
did I not
just
think about that?
Why is this rowboat moving so quickly? It's all I could think of.
I missed that. That's fucking amazing. It was literally just like a dinky little rowboat just slowly. Oh my God, that's so good.
Yep. Because they sense his magic. He definitely sensed their magic, but also has this, like, running map of, like, everything that comes into his territory. So it's just like he sensed two magic beings on this tiny little, like,
tiny little boat. Oh my God, that's good.
And he already has some kind of knowledge of, like, shit hit the fan in another location. Who are these guys? Why are they here? Yep. So they
That's
they
basically where the chapter is.
Yeah.
It ends like they just walk up to the office door and just like knock knock.
Yep.
The Fey Prince knocked once. A grunt was all they got in response. Dorian didn't know what he expected from the Lord of Pirates, but a dark-haired man, a day past 30 if that, lounging on a red velvet chaise before the rain-splattered curve of windows was not it. Oh.
Hello, Rolf, our favorite
Little
pirate
Rolf.
lord.
Hope he doesn't trade in slaves anymore, because otherwise she's gonna be pissed.
I don't think he does.
I don't think he does. I think he learned his lesson. It's very expensive.
It was a very expensive lesson to learn. He doesn't trade slaves, but he definitely probably holds a grudge.
Very expensive. Worthy expense. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that is where we are ending part 2 of our tandem read. Part 2, part 3. Part 3 of our tandem read. Where are we?
I don't know. Somewhere. So
we
got a long way to go.
Part 3 of our tandem read. We want to thank all of you, as usual, for checking out our podcast and hanging out during this tandem read with us. We hope you enjoyed your time. You can find us at the Smut Peddlers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for additional content.
Thanks, guys. Bye.